Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
The question isn't what are we going to do, the question is what aren't we going to do.
Caution everyone to watch out for pies.
At this point, anything is possible, so yes, pies, seltzer bottles, balloon animals, be alert.
Alrighty then.
Whatever it is we look forward to and whoever it is we're chasing. To that I say amen.
Keep this thing going. Pick a name. Go on the air. Talk hard.
To that I say all right, all right, all right.
Introducing Leatherhead, the evil Cajun gator.
Leatherhead, these are your targets, the friends of the Ninja Turtles. Yusaki Yojimbo, the samurai rabbit. Casey Jones, the sports warrior. And Metalhead, the robotic turtle vending machine. Destroy them!
Whoa, better watch the old blood pressure, Shredhead. Now you can get a pop-up display stand inside specially marked packages of turtle figures. Great for displaying turtles when they're not eating pizza. From Playmates.
The birth is only the beginning of the nightmare for Robin, and soon the world. One of her babies will face death, the other will strike to kill. And when Robin meets up with the alien father, she'll seek revenge.
What have you done, Robin?
The resistance force will face their toughest battle yet. Will their secret defense save them or backfire? And when Donovan is reunited with his son, will Sean become his greatest enemy? Who will claim the V for victory?
V, tomorrow at 8 on Channel 17.
The X-Men are now on Fox, and we're celebrating with the X-Men Video Extravaganza. You can win the X-Men home video, a TV, VCR, and X-Men stuff. To enter, mail a postcard with the name of your favorite X-Men character, your name, address, and phone number to X-Men on Fox, Box 1129, Hollywood, California, 90078. Entries must be received by January 20th for you to win.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time you've been working all week long for. The time we officially... Let's hear some car horns out there going with the whistle. Everybody ready? All right. I'm butt naked. I know.
Quitting time. I said it's quitting time. I was the foreman. I was the one says when it's quitting time at Terra. Quitting time!
You are a wonderful person.
It's a party town. Friday evening, what a feeling. Feel like singing.
Losing his mind. And I'm reaping all the benefits.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
All right, folks, hope you're having a great week. Hope things are going well for you. Welcome to the Friday Popcast with me. And yes, back again, this guy, Beard is in the house. We're going to talk about The Departed. He was with us talking about The Prestige, which was a great film. And off camera, we kind of had a discussion about some films that he kind of, maybe he hadn't seen or hot takes. And this is one that kind of bubbled right to the surface. And I think we both have not seen The Departed maybe since it came out. I know for me, it's been a long, long time. And I felt very much like a first-time watch, Beard. And really cool pick, man. Thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, this was a fun one to revisit because I was kind of with you. Like, I think I watched it once shortly after it released on DVD because everybody said I should watch it. And then I hadn't seen it again since I rewatched for this. So, yeah, it was kind of like just getting into it for the first time.
Yeah, I'm probably going to join you with a lot of hot takes on this, folks. So if this is one of your favorite movies of all time, feel free to chime in because of Scorsese's movies, I can say this wouldn't be one that I'm going to be jumping to rewatch a lot. I definitely think that it has the same problem for me in a lot of ways that I feel Casino has. I have a video coming out very soon. If you're watching this, it may already be up. Where it feels like we're deviating so much from real life that it just becomes like a pale generic version of what they were going for. Instead, if they had really kind of dialed into some of more of the true events, really dove into Whitey Bulger or really keep some of the stuff the same, I think this probably would have had a better oomph for me. But the fact that this is such a big renown as a Scorsese's Oscar win, it's like I'm sort of like surprised by that, Beard. I didn't necessarily like do a dive deep in this movie, and you've kind of forced me to, and I'm even more shocked about everything that's around it than I knew before.
Well, let's see. I'm anybody who knows me or sees me on any movie review shows knows I'm not a movie guy. I'm basically your average Joe that missed watching a whole bunch of things and then I go back and watch them again. So I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Scorsese films. I couldn't talk to like his style or his ability really. I just know that this one at certain times just feels so disjointed. I have a hard time believing it really won much. Like cinematography, like the cinematography, the characters, the story just occasionally just says, "Hey, here's your focus. Never mind it. Now your focus is over here. Completely forget what you were just looking at because we only showed you it for about 5 seconds, and it will never come back again. And it could be cut from the film, but we wanted to show it to you anyway." I don't know. There's just a lot in this that it felt like I had to fight through to actually try to enjoy the movie.
Yeah, best director nod is an odd one for this. I think I'm just going to say this is riding the coattails of Nicholson's performance. But again, and I can't stand that they use Frank Costello's name because there is an actual historical person called Frank Costello who is not this person. So that bothers me. And then the fact that it's based more on like Whitey Bulger, this famous mafioso guy from Boston, but it's not Whitey Bulger. So I feel like Scorsese's direction nod is sort of like riding the coattails of Nichols, because the two most famous scenes in the movie are things that people have come out and explained that Nicholson did. So the famous one is the when he executes the lady from behind and she kind of falls sideways and he says something like, "Oh, she fell funny," and he laughs, and it's become like a meme because it's such a dark, evil approach to things. And he just improvised that. He just improvised that on the set and sold it, and that went through. So that's all Nicholson.
It was my favorite thing that happened on The Departed about a scene that I was not in, but he was. It was 1/8 of a page, and it said Costello, which is the name of his character. Costello executes man kneeling in the marshes. I can do that, but I think I can make it better. But instead of a man kneeling in the marshes, I make it a woman. And he goes, so I put Ray in the scene with me. But if you leave the camera rolling, after she falls, I turn to Ray and I say, geez, she felt funny. Now that's a really sinister thing to say. Because it means I do this a lot and there's a way people fall.
Right.
Now you could end the scene there, but if you leave the camera rolling, reveals that he's holding an axe. He's gonna chop her up.
Oh, man.
Now you could end the scene there.
Jeez. She felt funny. Francis, you really should see somebody.
The other one is the scene where he is waving a gun around after sniffing out the rat thing. He does this almost like Joker version of this, animated face, and then he actually points and he points the gun at DiCaprio. Well, he actually pointed a real gun.
You got something you wanna ask me?
You're 70 years old, Frank. I'm just saying, okay?
So Nicholson pointing the gun at him was definitely ad-libbed and not in the script. So again, these two things that most people talk about are not really other than Nicholson. So I don't know. And I kind of agree with you. I don't felt like it. I don't know if it's editing, if it's direction, it's a little bit just, it didn't feel as Oscar worthy as as it is, if that makes sense.
I think I agree, and I will say yes. Jack Nicholson definitely is fantastic. He's like one of the only roles that I can look at and be like, this is okay. I guess not. There are roles that are done really well, but I think the characters are not done well. So they're working really well with what they are given. I just don't really like what they're given, but I'm sure we're going to get into more of that later on. But I could definitely see award status being kind of piggybacking on Jack Nicholson. I agree.
The general story, folks, just so you know, and I will just do a quick little. This is a screenshot of the kid. So it opens with this kid, and Nicholson's character runs into this kid and basically takes him on a kind of a mentor type role. This kid will grow up to become Matt Damon. He's encouraged to go into the police force, ultimately rise into the ranks of detective and all of that. And what you're kind of feeling as the story is unpacking is that he basically is still working for Nicholson's character. He's still working for Frank. Then that's juxtaposed against DiCaprio's character, who is sort of like trying to get himself out of impoverished Boston, the crazy family. He's rising up to the ranks to be police and detective, but because his background has all these criminal and gangster ties, the police go to him and say, listen, would you mind embedding with us? So they're going to put him behind the bars. They're going to try to play it up like he's a criminal so he can get in with Frank's organization. So each group has a spy, and the entire film is that spy versus spy. Who's going to catch who? Can we get any goods on anyone? So there's a lot of really cool and good story elements playing with identity and your background and dealing with guilt and family pressures and organizational. There's all of that. I think was probably really the main driver of the film, and actually works really well. You agree with all that pretty much, Beard?
Yeah, the premise is really solid, and
yeah,
there is a core here that I definitely enjoyed a lot more the second time I watched this than the first time I did, because I think I was able to see a little bit more. I've watched more movies and things like this, so I think I see a little bit more value in it. But it doesn't necessarily just excuse the movie from some of the other issues that I think I have with it. But yeah,
Sure.
the spy versus spy, some of the tension where phone calls are literally just silence. Nobody says anything, and they let it kind of linger there.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff is pretty dang good.
So a little bit of what I think you're getting at, which I'll cut to the chase on one element. This movie is rather long. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things I think I would go to and probably make a better film for Beard to like. And I would trim a minimum of 15 minutes out of it, probably closer to that 30 minutes. I just think there's a lot of just walking and meandering and just wasted time of things. And I feel like Scorsese might have had like a 3.5 hour cut and trimmed it down to this, is how I feel. There's so much fluff almost. I almost feel like there's a Lord of the Rings extended cut out there somewhere of this movie.
I mean, I kind of get it, because it's basically 2 full-length movies in one, because you're following 2 characters throughout their entire story. And for a lot of the movie, they only kind of briefly intersect until like the last third of the movie and such like that. I mean, you could even argue that Frank is his own main character in his own story like that. So it is a lot of story to kind of cram in, but I think it could have been trimmed down a little bit, especially some of the weird cuts we see later on. I just, some of the scenes feel really disjointed.
So the first part of the film is, us kind of getting our bearings of who everyone is and who all the different characters are, and what is going to be basically DiCaprio versus Damon against, who is going to try to figure out how to get some sort of goods on Frank and, who he is. There's all sorts of real life sort of street drama of what's actually going on.
And DiCaprio is not a standard like undercover cop. He is an off the books, only 2 people know he exists sort of thing in the department.
Yeah,
it's like government special forces. Like, if you get discovered, we're going to pretend like we don't know you, sort of thing.
And I thought that was, to me, this is even more extreme than like the Donnie Brasco story. So I don't know if you know much about Donnie Brasco, that movie, Al Pacino and Johnny Depp, based on real life. Joe Piscopo is the actual FBI agent who goes undercover in the mob. It's one of the most historic, famous sort of law enforcement cases ever, because he actually got deep into the mob and ultimately was kind of face to face with bringing down, capos and everything else. And it actually kind of changed some of the code in the mafia, because I read the book, and it is fascinating to hear Joe Piscopo talk about how after me, they basically make you murder someone right away to prove your oath, because as a law enforcement officer, you can't do that. So it's one of the big ways of filtering people out. I feel like this was a bit of a stretch for me to believe that the Boston PD would just have a detective that would be that far under the radar. That just, I don't know. I'm again, second watch, I wasn't trying to throw stones at that. I thought it was kind of a thing. I'm just going to accept it at face value, but I don't know about for you, Vic. It feels like a stretch for like local police department.
Yeah, it does. And even kind of beyond that, there's the story itself is not clear on sometimes if you're working with Boston or state police, because I'm still not entirely certain if they were actually Boston or state police, because at one point, like Matt Damon says that he's a detective with state police. Okay, well, I thought you were both trying to get in with Boston PD, so I don't know if maybe I just missed something there, if it wasn't conveyed well in the movie. But it is a bit of a stretch to think that in the entire department of whatever police force that is, there are only two people who know this person is undercover. Like they basically have, well, I mean, I guess there is a record in the system, but it itself is buried really deep so that people can't find
right. It. So we praise Jack Nicholson's performance. To DiCaprio, he is at least given a couple of scenes that are worthy of note and some emotional range and a story arc. It doesn't necessarily make me like his character, but he at least feels like he's trying to be a pure enforcer of the law and catch Frank. And his whole background and everything like that's so muddled. He has some serious identity issues, whatever. So on that part, I'm okay with his character. We'll get to the relationship dynamic with Vera Farmiga in a minute, because that's where it turns for me. I don't get that part at all, but we'll get there. But if I contrast that with Matt Damon's character, he's like the slimy spy for Frank. I don't know that I ever, once I figured out kind of how this dynamic was working, I'm never rooting for Matt Damon's character to get away with anything. I was just wait. So I feel like, okay, so the entire movie is going to be about DiCaprio catching these two guys and how they're going to break down and how he's going to have sacrifice himself. That's kind of how I feel like the whole movie is going to go down. Because again, I feel like I haven't seen this movie in so long that I really didn't remember any of the details, guys. I felt like I remembered pieces of things and had like this, I don't know. When you watch something that long ago, Beard, maybe you feel the same way. I feel like I came away feeling like, oh, that's a good movie. Never watched it again. Like I didn't feel like I had any real major takeaways. And that's a pretty fair assessment. So when I got into the DiCaprio Damon thing, I didn't really know what else to think.
Yeah, when I watched this movie originally back in the day, it was, like I said, it was on the my friends urging me to do so, because they said it was amazing and I had to watch it. And honestly, I hated it back in the day. Just full on. I was like, I didn't like anything about this. I'm never gonna go back and watch it again. And that's where I left it in the past. And I did watch it differently this time, I think. I was able to see a little bit more, understand some characters a little bit more than I did before. I mean, hell, last time I watched it, I may have had it on a TV while I was like vacuuming or something. That was how little I cared about it.
Probably not the best way to watch Scorsese movies, but I get it. I feel you, brother.
Yeah, see, because I mean, my entire life I've never been this like cinemaphile that like sees Scorsese and goes, I have to see it. This is going to be a masterpiece. So I've never had that sort of attachment. I've got other movie hot takes that I keep to myself because I'll get excommunicated for our little circle of friends here.
Oh no. I won't tolerate that.
But I mean, I definitely followed Leo's character a lot more this time around.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, there's the term long suffering, and that is a long suffering character, because they're not clear about the time, but he is there undercover for years.
Yeah.
And is fighting to hold on to whatever shred of decency that he fought to attain when he was a kid that he didn't have. And then they put him in this environment that's trying to destroy that a little bit. So I do appreciate that. And I think I agree with what you said. He had a few good scenes where he could kind of show a little bit of range, but he's mostly just kind of angry or confused the entire film.
Yeah.
That's like his two main emotions.
I enjoy what Scorsese's doing. He's, doing a great job of showcasing mob life and kind of thug life against what the police are like and how their lives are, in cars and watching things. And there's a lot of moments in Boston I think work pretty well. I feel like Scorsese being Scorsese is the plot here. And I didn't come away that impressed with, DiCaprio more than Damon. Damon just felt like he was just doing Matt Damon. I don't feel like there was anything that special with any of his scenes or anything like that. And the characters.
If we're gonna give him a little bit of credit, we'll say he's playing Matt Damon playing an over the top Boston resident, which is what Matt Damon does in a lot of films. So
okay, fair enough. But if I juxtapose that against, I'd have to find a photo while we're chatting it up. Matt Wahlberg plays the over-the-top Boston cop, and he's significantly more entertaining and entertaining, even though we don't get a ton of Matt Wahlberg. So
yeah,
Matt Wahlberg, so it is like totally over the top. The profanity's insane. He's completely insane. But at the core of it, he is like this man of integrity. Like, this is what we're here to do, what we're going to do. I see through you. I could care less about you. I care about getting this gangster. So I think he kind of overshadowed Damon in every single way from start to finish, even without spoiling the end of the movie. I'm like, yeah, Mark Wahlberg really showed him up. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah,
too,
especially at the start. Because Matt Damon's character, was it Colin? Yeah. He's basically just trying to fit in, to get in, to do what he has to do to rise. He's not really looking to necessarily stand out until he gets to like going for detective. And then that's when he kind of like starts taking charge. So he was a character that was, at least in my eyes, trying to sort of blend in and just do what he had to do to rise the ranks without drawing too much attention until he had that sort of position of power where he could kind of start doing what he needed to do, being undercover.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So were you familiar with the sort of like the meaning of this and the legacy of the Nicholson scene and the she fell funny line? Because I think this is probably one of the things this movie is known for, which is kind of weird, but yep, it is.
This movie fell so far under my radar after I watched it that first time. It was okay. I had no idea that was a thing, a meme, or ad-libbed at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this was really kind of eerie and creepy. If he shoots so and so, and Matt Damon's talked about, other people have talked about this scene and Nichols, but I think this is the one element that the film does do well, that it obviously was somewhat collaborative. It was some input from certain folks to make this film better. Mm-hmm. And I think that does tend to lend itself to being a rather bloated film, though, that there tends to be a lot more here than there kind of needs to be in a lot of ways. I think that when they're on screen together, DiCaprio and Nicholson are fine, but Nicholson is carrying the water for the most part, and everything is very believable. Though I felt, we'll get to. I got to get to the couple of the believable moments. I can't stand one of the, and he again, this was a Nicholson thing. I don't have a photo of it. He's with, I guess he's brought someone home with his wife, I guess, but he throws cocaine at that. It was just a weird scene that didn't even need to be in the movie. They could have just left and then we cut ahead to the story again. But that was all Nicholson.
That follows, I think that follows after like they're at the opera and he's got his wife and another woman sitting on either side of him. And then it cuts to whatever action is being juxtaposed with the music of the opera. Then it cuts back to him and throwing cocaine. Then that's it. It's just the end.
I don't know why we needed any of that. We could have just cut that they're at the opera because it's a typical Godfather motif, right? The mafia is doing this, looking like they're clean and legit. Meanwhile, their operatives are doing this over here, murdering people, conspiracy, whatever. It was like another, again, like I said, I would be trimming out these kind of moments, which would totally tick the man off if that was his idea, because I'm like, it doesn't need to be there. It was a complete waste of a couple minutes of my time. And it actually, like you said, it makes the pacing feel weird because things are so, start, stop. Tons of great actors are in this movie. Martin Sheen has a great role, but it's very sort of like undersold. Like he has this great moment here on the roof, which comes to a climax, if you will, for his character. I wish I had more Martin Sheen, because he was actually very good in what we had. We don't have enough of him in a lot of ways. I had a picture pull up earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of think I like him so much because he's so subtle compared to pretty much everybody else that's carrying any scene in this movie. Because the three main leads otherwise are so over the top. You got Mark Wahlberg, who's still pretty over the top, and he's in, and Martin Sheen's the only one that kind of like seems normal. Like he's got like, it seems like he can actually kind of keep his cool in most scenes. So maybe that's why he kind of stands out to me.
So
a
maybe
bit of
he
calm in the middle of the storm.
Maybe he feels like, to me, then I would, because I agree with that assessment. I think I could connect it to, he feels like he would actually be a leader in the police force. Whereas if I compare that to like Alec Baldwin's character, who is just this over the top yelling, screaming, different. He's between, he's not as crazy as like Mark Wahlberg's character, but not a whole lot less crazy. And it's like he does,
they're both caricatures. I mean, even though Baldwin's not as over the top about it, he's still a caricature or a trope, a stereotype. He's not really a character.
Yeah. I mentioned briefly the love interest, who really doesn't matter in this movie. It's so weird that there's so much time and energy spent with this girl. And Vera Farmiga is beautiful in this movie. I didn't even recognize her at first. And she basically is this therapist that the police have to go to talk about, their PTSD. And Matt Damon swoons and gets her. And then later, because DiCaprio has to go to her, ends up sleeping with her, which ruins the integrity of his character. And it somehow connects them that the girl matters. And I'm like, why are we even having all of that screen time with this girl story? So I don't know about you, Beard. That was definitely the one thing it will probably anger everyone. Maybe you guys love Vera Farmiga. I do too. I think she's a fine actress, but what a waste of my time.
I think so. Her having so much screen time, and that's not a dig to the actress. It's a dig to this is my criticism of the character and why the character was included in the story. So we're very clear about that. Because that character had so much screen time, I think that's one of the things that contributes to a lot of this movie not feeling like this over the top, like thriller sort of thing, but just like almost slice of life sort of, why am I spending 2.5 hours me watching people just live their lives sort of thing. And without giving away any plot points, I think there is a specific plot point involving that character that somebody came up with, probably Scorsese, and said, this is going to be brilliant. I now have to make this character important enough to keep around for this specific plot point in the film. And so I kind of suspect that I kind of suspect that character was written backwards, because there was a specific reveal that they wanted to have that revolved around having that character present. And even I know writing characters backwards from, I want this cool thing to happen, so I have to create all this, is risky, because sometimes that just means you're just checking boxes to get to the point that you want and not actually developing a character that contributes to the story.
All right, so spoiler warning for those of you who've never seen this movie. We have to talk about this and unpack it, because it is sort of like the pinnacle of the film and my biggest problem with the movie. So we're going to get there anyway. We might as well just put the spoiler warning out there for you guys, because she's so key to the final act of the movie. And it makes no sense to me, because she's not a reporter. So I could have written the character and made it work. I don't know how I would have had them go to her as a reporter, which would have made her relevant. I could have had her just showing up in things or piecing together the story or something if I had to have her. But it makes no sense that DiCaprio is going to go to her as the only person that he trusts and gives her this tape that proves his innocence and who's doing what to whom and everything like that. I'm like, but then none of that, because there's some sort of time jump in the third act where we have a gap of time that she could have gone public and didn't go public. Like, I don't understand. It doesn't work for me at all. It did not work for me at all. And like I said, I didn't come into this conversation with that hot take. And now that I watched it, and Beard had said he had a hot take, I said, I don't know if this is where his hot take is, but I hated the third act of the movie. It feels rushed and contrived because we have to somehow make this character matter. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, it is really weird. I guess I can buy into a little bit, especially a character that has spent years undercover in a terrible environment, not trusting anybody, losing the people that he trusts on the inside, losing contact with people he trusts on the inside, basically feeling totally alone, where this being the one human connection that he has. I guess I could kind of buy into, but that's where he would send, the information that he comes across. But no rational human in my mind would think I'm only sending it to this one person.
Mm-hmm.
You make copies of that and you send it to everybody. You send it to every news outlet. Somebody's going to run with it, even if they don't necessarily can't confirm that everything is true. They're going to run with it. And the point in the story that we get that information, there's very few people out there that can contradict the information that he's putting out. So why not run with it?
And as far as I can tell, I mean, Alec Baldwin's character is still sort of out there, right? Like, yeah. His brother, even though he's got all this criminal record, his brother's still out there. He would have been able to have the information. Probably would have got his brother killed, possibly, but at least it makes more sense that it would go to multiple people. Or, as I said, she's not a therapist. She's just a reporter, or would have some mechanism to be better suited for this. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They all just end up in this contrived shootout that is just, everyone has to be in the perfect place at the perfect time for it to work. And I will admit, again, watching it with pretty fresh eyes, I was pretty shocked and surprised. I did not remember the ending at all. I got to be perfectly honest. I somehow thought certain characters survived than others. Again, more spoiler alerts, and more spoiler alerts. I did not think that we were just going to have one character take out another character, take out another character, take out. I just did not remember that happening. I kind of remember the Nicholson, who, by the way, I don't want to derail the thought too much, but he doesn't look like he knows how to handle a gun when he shoots at Matt Damon's character. Sorry, Jack. I don't know how long it had been, but you didn't seem like you knew what you were doing. You were going to shoot the light before you would shoot at the person you're. I mean, it was really. He
was still
bad.
Channeling the Joker with that really long revolver.
Yeah, what was happening? Because he was all over. That was really. But the idea that we'll have a rooftop setting, and we're going to have this scene, which will lead to this scene, and I don't know, man. I had a really hard time with the way it sort of kind of wraps up.
The way the ending plays out, like you're saying, with the convenience of certain characters being in certain places, certain characters having certain allegiances that never were alluded to ever in the film whatsoever, and being in the right place at the right time, and just deciding to just, like a row of dominoes, just start taking people out. It kind of felt like, I want this ending because this would be a cool twist. I want this ending because this would be a cool twist. Well, I kind of want both of them. So if I'm going to go ahead and use both of them, I'm going to use this other ending that I also think is kind of a cool twist. And it kind of makes me feel like nobody can decide, hey, this is the best ending for this. And so they just rolled them all into one.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I found this photo where I feel like that's what's actually happening in this photo. Sorry, let me pull up this. This is one of the press photos that was just in the stuff, and it kind of makes me laugh. It's Scorsese on the rooftop with Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio going, "Wait, what is the ending, Marty? What is the ending? Who? Wait, I thought I was shooting him. No, he's shooting me. No, he's shooting you. Wait, who's shooting who? Like where do these other cops come from, and how does he get to the first floor? And I don't know, man."
Yeah, Leo looks confused, and Matt looks like he's about to say something back to him that he's going to regret.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that we got to that part. It kind of made me laugh. But so again, lots of spoiler alerts, folks. It did catch me off guard. I will say that it made the black guy irrelevant in a different way I didn't expect. Suddenly, the other guy is embedded with him all along, but didn't bother helping him along the way. Like, it didn't bother remotely contributing to the story this whole time. Like that would, again, it's the same. I don't think I've ever thought
and
of.
that's the stuff.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that makes it just seem like it's not a tightly written movie, and it's just a piece of life. Is you just have characters who are there, then just are never there anymore. And that's how life is sometimes. You just move on, and suddenly you're just not talking to somebody that was your friend for a while. But that doesn't. If it's not contributing to the story in the movie, that means that character is kind of pointless.
Yeah, I didn't. I feel like he's going, hey, remember me the whole time, every scene he's in, because there's these massive irrelevant moments that he's remotely in the movie. And then there's another cop that's in this same sequence who's like, hey, remember me too? Not really.
Yeah.
At me at home. Not really. No. But hey, listen, so-and-so is going to shoot so-and-so who's going to shoot so-and-so. And that's what we're going to have. And you're like, okay.
Honestly, I remember this even from the first time I watched this movie. The way things are rolling once, like, to just go with like all the, slang and tropes and stuff, when the house of cards starts to fall, there is one character I fully expected would not make it to the end of this movie because the ending would be extra tragic. Once they locked themselves in a bathroom, I expected we are never seeing that character again. And that is the only thing this movie did that actually surprised me. Is I fully thought they was going to go that dark and just be like, nobody around these people can be happy. Most people around these people cannot survive. So obviously this person has to be taken out somehow. And I thought that they were going to go that route. And that was the only thing the movie kind of surprised me. And at the end of the movie, it was like, oh, well, at least one person is kind of remotely happy, even though they're surrounded by tragedy.
Right. Yeah,
I'm trying to avoid specifics, even though we are
dipping
our
fine.
toes into the spoiler pool.
Yeah, we're in the spoiler pool, but it's yeah. No, I think I'll be honest, it caught me off guard, but I couldn't agree more. And I will say the film feels like it's more of just commentary on how bad all of this is and what a bad idea this is too. Like, we watch mafia movies and they're not really good people. There's like, oh, you're not really cheering against the Don and the Godfather because of all the family stuff. And he says it so well and convincing. He's actually convincing you at home about being this nice guy and whatever. And then once Michael takes over, it's that continuation. I was out, but they pulled me back in like that. Okay. We're still kind of like, oh, we don't want to see them mask. We're kind of cheering for them in that way, but cheering is not even the right word. And in this movie, because now we have like the police so integral of having a spy on the inside here and so spying here and whatever, and you feel like, my takeaway is this is worse. This is actually worse. This may be worse than just staying outside trying to catch the mafia doing bad things. That's kind of how I felt. I felt even less interested in rooting for someone.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of alludes to, well, I think my comment, which is kind of what sparked this conversation,
right,
is that you can make charismatic bad guys that you like. You're not actually rooting for them because they are bad guys. They're sometimes really bad people in these stories, but they can be written well enough that you like them. This is my comment, my hot take that kind of sparked this was there's no likable main characters in this movie. Leo's character is the closest you get, but he's been undercover for so long. So many of his morals are already kind of tainted, and he already kind of came from kind of like a little bit of a scummy background. I'm not saying that you can't get out of that, but the police department didn't give him a chance to get out of it. They threw him back in and said, get back in the mud and wallow around like the pig that you are. I mean, so no, there's no between the trio of main characters. There's not one likable one.
I would have disagreed with you until as I watched it, you know what it hit me with? It was the way he ends up sleeping with Vera Farmiga's character. I know that sounds silly, but on screen, we don't see any romance between her and Brad Damon. There's no makeout scene, but there is a makeout scene with her and DiCaprio. So our brain my brain was triggered more by that. Like it felt more like he's the cheater. And I know that's a silly thing, but it kind of makes the moral slide even easier and just make him even less likable. And I guess, like you were saying about the charismatic, I mean, I was never rooting for Frank. I was never thinking Frank was going to get away. I don't know. It was definitely an era of mafia stuff that we can document and we can say street crime and this is what it was like and whatever. And I get all that, but I feel like everybody's choosing their path. There's not victims. And that's the difference between this and some other films that, they're slimy, nasty people, but they're still sort of like victims of what they've gotten themselves into. So for instance, I brought up Casino briefly. Also Scorsese. Also very similar that they took a lot of real life stuff and changed it. Pesci's character is a disaster. Sharon Stone's character is a disaster. But at the end of the day, De Niro really has a couple scenes that kind of make him the sleazy whatever. But he's sort of like the victim of everyone else's shenanigans. Yeah, he's in love with Stone and she's a drug addict. And then Pesci betrays him and does. So it's like, I'm not necessarily rooting for his character, but I'm definitely not rooting for him to go. And I it's a difficult genre to get right, like you said, writing the villains or writing the antagonists and these people in a way that you're not rooting against them. And I have to agree with you. I don't know that I would care to watch this again because I don't know what I come away with feeling other than just icky. I feel like this is worse than just a regular mafia movie where it's just a bunch of people doing crime stuff and police that can't catch them story. Like Goodfellas, like his Goodfellas movie to me is way more fun and enjoyable and fast paced. And the characters are more interesting and dynamic. And even the ones that are just on screen for a brief period of time, I'm not necessarily rooting for anyone, but at the end of the day, I'm like, Henry, you got yourself in this mess and you're going to jail. I don't really want you to die, but you need to get yours. You know what I mean? It's like Henry staying alive is what you're kind of rooting for. In this one, I guess I was cheering for Leo's character to stay alive, but not really. I don't know. That's not very probably a healthy thing for me to have to confess, I guess, but let's try and felt.
Yeah. I don't know. When it comes to art, the artist may have an intent, but ultimately the audience gets to decide kind of what they take away from that art. So if his intent was in creating this movie, Scorsese's intent was just to make everything feel terrible and make you kind of feel dirty and that there's no good guy, very clearly no good guys, everybody's kind of awful in this sort of situation, then I guess he succeeded. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know, maybe I'm just still kind of, despite my grumpy, curmudgeonly heart, holding on to a little bit of my childhood where like, man, I just really want to see the hero win, even if they like got to suffer and like barely make it through. And I just don't really like movies where there's not somebody I can root for, or TV shows or stories or books or anything where there's not at least one person that I can get behind. I don't know.
Yeah. And it does have, look, I'm going to also be honest and give the movie a lot of credit because I know some of you guys are already probably hating on me for it, but reality is there's also a lot of like film school type stuff that people would like about this movie. So if you haven't seen it, every time there's somewhat like an X on screen, the way they shoot out of different windows and vantage points on the outside or whatever, a main character's dying, a significant character's dying. So this happens throughout the movie in a couple different ways and whatever. You can Google this, just put in The Departed and then put in X and you'll see X scene and you'll see all the different moments and different scenes and shots that are like that. So that element is very
interesting.
Very film school, nerdy, kind of cool. Like that's actually kind of cool. Then of course we briefly pulled it up, that first scene with when Nicholson's meeting Matt Damon's character as a little boy and they're buying groceries and he had this type of thing and that type of thing. So at the end of the movie, when Matt Damon shows up at the apartment, let's just say the stuff that's in his bag is the exact same kind of food. So it's like this bookend of the story of his character and all that. So this is the nerdy film school stuff that gives this movie a little bit of extra credit that those people that love this movie will kind of cling to. But as a casual viewer and trying to be objective, I didn't catch that enough. Like it didn't give me enough of a oomph that I would have felt. Like I watch a Hitchcock movie, I usually get the crazy film school stuff that he's trying to get me to get. I don't think Scorsese did as well a job as you guys think he did with this one. So that's my stuff. So
yeah, it's difficult with that kind of stuff because it's easy to write it in. Like if it's a language, it's easy to speak a language knowing that the people who know that language are going to understand you. It's hard to use that language and communicate to somebody else that not necessarily maybe they don't speak that. So I think it's easy to put film school, to use your term, stuff in, knowing that the film school people are going to see it. It's much more difficult to convey the same ideas, feelings, or story beats to your casual audience, or to bring attention to something like the repeated appearance of an X without making it look really over the top, like zooming in on it, like, oh, look at this X right here next to a bloody hand or something.
Yeah.
So I get that. I kind of appreciate it. I definitely didn't know that was in there.
Right.
And I do think that I would probably like this movie again a little bit more each time I watched it, but I don't think I'm ever really going to love it or want to watch it multiple times after this.
Well, especially because I'm going to recommend like so many other Scorsese movies that are superior to this one. Like I'm still in shock. So first off, it's a remake or an adaptation of something that already existed. I didn't know the Hong Kong movie is called Infernal Affairs. And Brad Pitt was actually involved with getting the rights to it so the rights to this and getting this movie made kind of evolved over the course of years, as many of these things do. But there's actually an original Hong Kong film that was very highly renowned and regarded. I've never seen Infernal Affairs. I don't know where to even watch it, but that's kind of on my radar screen. And the other thing too, is I brought up the Oscar thing a little bit. It was in a year where, first off, with the Best Picture issues, we only had 5 back then. Now we do 10. Because we love to put Oscar logos on more stuff. So that's what they do. They keep adding categories and expand, which is fine. I don't have a problem with them expanding categories. I think 8 is fine. I don't think we should get to 10, but it only had 5. And it was a year where just, so the things it was up against are movies that most people either have never even heard of, let alone watch, like Babel, Letters from Iwo Jima, which is an Eastwood project with Steven Spielberg, Little Miss Sunshine, The Queen, Last King of Scotland had landed Forrest Whitaker a Best Actor. That's his Best Actor Oscar as well. So Dreamgirls was a big deal on that side, with Jennifer Hudson winning one for Best Supporting Actress. So this wasn't a year full of these big name caliber films that we're all talking about in Oscar history or anything like, or film history or anything like that. So I'm not saying it's an overrated film, but it's an overrated film. It really is. I mean, it's fine.
Again, unsurprising to people who know me, I've not seen most of the movies on that list. I have seen Letters from Iwo Jima, and I would give it the Oscar over The Departed easily.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's one I need to watch as well. I have not watched that in so long. And I also feel like that I would have, if I stayed up and watched I can't remember 2006, I would have had little kids. So I'm not sure that would have been a year I would have stayed up with these type of films on the docket. I'm also not surprised that this is where Marty gets his Oscar, right? When you're up against those other directors and those other films, maybe Eastwood's film should have gotten it or whatever, but this was their chance to get Scorsese his. And yeah, I'm going to score it fairly. I think I'm going to score it a little lower than most people, but I think I'm being fair because I do appreciate the art elements and what they're doing for a crime drama and a period piece and all of that. I'm going to give it like a 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give it kind of like a 7. Very strong, but not super strong. Can't get there with the 8 thing. Can't get there, guys. I just can't get above that. But my rewatchability factor is pretty nil. Like I can't see myself wanting to watch this again. And Scorsese's done so much better work. I think this is wanting to. It's just that kind of irritates me more than anything else. So, all right, Bear, you kind of said you weren't really interested in watching it again. How do you kind of score a film like this that you?
If I had scored this back when I first watched it, and that was with the first week of it coming out on DVD, is when I didn't catch it in theaters, I would have given it like a 1.
Wow.
Because I was so uninterested. I basically watched it out of obligation, and I hated every character in it. Upon rewatch, and maybe it's thanks to you and some of my other friends have kind of brought me into watching a little bit more movies. I can appreciate even when I don't necessarily love the characters or a story. I can give this a pretty solid 3 out of 5, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I was pretty.
It's
I leaned
like,
down, not up. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, I can see stuff there. I can understand, especially some of the things that I know now with the groceries and the eggs. I'm sure there's a lot of other little secrets hidden in there that I just don't know about. So I can appreciate that. There are some performances that are really good. I still do think there's some of the cinematic things just weird, how some of the fight scenes are cut, and maybe that's to make it feel disjointed. I don't know, because I'm not, didn't go to film school or anything like that. So there's things in there that I think don't translate to your average audience like they might to people who are really, really into cinema. So I can appreciate some stuff there that I think is probably my kind of shortcoming about understanding the movies or the creation process. But I'm also not really looking forward to get back into it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. So because of this and some other stuff that I've been watching, I'm kind of down the rabbit hole a little bit. So I do plan to do a rewatch because I have not watched Taxi Driver or Raging Bull forever. And King of Comedy as well, even though I don't think I own or have a way of watching that yet. But these really famous, renowned Scorsese films I'd like to get to between now and the end of the year to try to give them a better, fair reanalysis. I love Goodfellas. I know there are probably people who may have this higher or lower, but I think Goodfellas is exceedingly rewatchable, captures all the mafia stuff. Henry Hill's story is, I think it's fantastic. With this, I could take it or leave it. I could, yeah.
I think it might be interesting after you go through a couple more Scorsese things to kind of get your opinion on because I think a lot of people who make a name for themselves in any industry, but especially Hollywood, get to the point where nobody's willing to say no to them or even push back, so that they have to like fight for their passion. I kind of wonder because, I mean, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and I think that's what happened to George is people stopped saying no to him, and that's why things started falling off when he went back and started making movies again. So
yeah,
I'd be kind of interested to see if you might think that is kind of how it is. So maybe after you watch a whole bunch of Scorsese movies, you might give us a little short breakdown of what you think of kind of like the progress of his career. That'd be
I think that if you've never seen Mean Streets, it's a 1973. I did do a video on that. I believe that was either really early this year or last year, and I was really taken with how much I enjoyed the movie. It really feels street level, almost like indie filmmaking, shaky cam stuff, real gritty, and also just like a bunch of street thugs. But you do have a couple that you're you don't want to see them get stabbed and killed. Like you don't. So I think it's really a remarkable film compared to something like this that feels produced. It didn't feel, and again, maybe it's just me because I feel about this film the same way I kind of felt. And again, spoiler if you haven't seen the Casino video that I'm doing, but similar. Score's about the same, rewatchability is about the same. Like I'm like, and these are not the worst movies in the world, but the rewatchability is not there, the likable characters not there, things like that. So, yeah. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it would be interesting to see many. And there are other films he's done that I really don't have any desire to sit through again. I know people love The Irishman. It is way too long for me. I'm never sitting through that movie again. That is, talk about not saying no to the guy. Holy crapola, man.
That's another one where, I mean, full disclosure, I haven't seen it, but the discussion I've seen with other folks who are into movies, it just seems like at a certain point you get so big that you get in your own way because nobody else is willing to kind of direct you and say, hey, this is a bad decision here, buddy.
Yeah. Remember how we talked about how this might have like the 3-hour cut or whatever, The Departed 3-hour cut?
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, The Irishman is kind of a 3-hour cut. It's over 3 hours long, and it just keeps going and going and going. Like I am never sitting through The Irishman again. Like it's unbearably long. I'm just not desired. He's done others that I'm just like so mad on sitting through again. Not even for it being bad, just not interested in watching it again. But yeah, there's others like Gang of New York. I'm looking forward to seeing again. I can't remember the last time I've watched that, and I remember I always think really highly of that film, and feel like enough people don't talk about how good Gangs of New York are. So
he did Gangs of New York because that is fantastic.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about that next time because it was and Daniel Day-Lewis is just remarkable. So Yeah. And yeah, I'd rather watch that movie and Goodfellas over and over and over again and then watch this again. Like I just didn't enjoy it. But so I guess we can end on the concept though, because I do think we're right that many, especially with this genre, crime drama, mafia, this type of stuff, historical stuff like this, there aren't good people. There aren't really like heroes, so it is a tricky balance. Do you have other examples you can think of where you can think, I did really, like I cheered for The Godfather. I'm cheering for, Brando's character. I'm like, oh, I'm sad he died. Like I didn't want him to die, even though we know he's, this gross criminal that's pulling the strings. And, you have some other examples like that?
Well, I mean, just the crime genre itself is not something that was really ever in my wheelhouse in general, because like I said, I kind of like having a hero to root for. And sometimes you just have in this genre a villain that you like or you dislike less than everybody else. But I do think that since you brought up Gangs in New York, that does remind me that Daniel Day-Lewis's character is incredibly charismatic, incredibly evil and sadistic. But I kind of like every time he shows up on screen.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily rooting for him or don't want to see him absolutely get what's coming to him, but when he's on screen, I'm not bored or disgusted or upset. Just like he carries the scene. He can be that. He can say his lines and draw me in, and I understand where his character is coming from. I'm not necessarily rooting for it, but it makes some sort of twisted like villain logic.
You get a connection there for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
I mean, this is the Thanos fans,
probably
right?
My best example.
Yeah, the Thanos fans, right? This is the Thanos fans.
Yes.
We get it. And obviously Darth Vader is by far, to me, the best of the tragic villains. And I came out of Revenge of the Sith going, George actually made this work. I'm still just shocked after these last two movies that he made this work. So yeah. But yeah, I'm going to have another video I'm working on because I just watched The Untouchables. And while I don't think De Niro as Al Capone is on there, I'm rooting for him because he is a villain that's done so well. And the cops are sort of pure, like Elliot Ness. And I'm not getting into the historical nonsense because I mean, obviously this movie is wildly, wildly historically inaccurate, but that Connery's mentorship when it leads to his death, and you're rooting for Elliot Ness to get this guy. It doesn't care. You don't care if it's just something silly like tax evasion. You're just, thank God someone got this guy off the streets. So it's done right in that movie. I don't think I ever felt like, oh, well, thank goodness they get these guys off the street because half of them are just as dirty, if not worse than the mobsters are in Departed. Like, I guess, yeah, interesting. It's an interesting conversation for sure because it is such a very highly respected film. I'm assuming, especially in this genre.
Yeah, and anyone who's not seen it, if they've sat through the spoilers, I'm sorry, you should have seen it first. It is worth at least going through and watching because I know enough people who do like it that I'm not going to sit here and say I'm absolutely right and you won't like it. You might get into it and see everything that I'm not seeing and appreciate it and love it and watch it every single year. I'm completely content watching it every 15 to 20. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm sitting here saying this is an absolute terrible movie. I try to make it very clear to people that I often think that because I've had such limited movie watching experience that sometimes I'm falling short of kind of like where I need to be to kind of catch on to whatever they're trying to say. And you know, that's not always the case, but I at least try to give the creator the benefit of the doubt because for some reason, a studio gave them a ton of money to make a movie. So who am I to sit here and say it was absolutely a waste? So I don't know.
That's my job. So that's what I do. I have no qualms telling them that they wasted money. I don't think Departed is. And even if we had spoilers, I think that the journey of seeing characters' demise is fine. I don't think it ruins anything. If I'd gone into this with a better memory of who passes away or whatever, I still would have been shocked by the sequence of the order and stuff like that. So, but I think I have a standard. This is I still stick to I try to play along with the 10 score thing, but I stick to my rule of the 5-star system because that was the traditional thing when I grew up. And a 5 is those legendary films that are the classics that everyone will talk about, generational, those kinds of movies. And the 4s are the great films. These are great freaking films. You know what I mean? And we throw around that so loosey-goosey now. So even though I'm giving this movie like a 3.5, I think that's a really very strong film. And a movie that I scored like that, in the calendar year and it was nominated for an Oscar, I would have come to you. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a good movie. It could be in the conversation, and definitely elements of the conversation. Like, it wouldn't have shocked me if you had in the right year Nicholson nominated or even DiCaprio for Best Supporting. It wouldn't have surprised me. Necessarily, I would go along with it depending on what they're up against. But yeah, it's been an interesting one to revisit. And Beard and I will have to chatter down what we can tolerate watching together again, and then coming to you guys
I'm
and talking
glad
about.
some like random throwaway comment I made sparked such an interesting conversation with you, because I think it kind of caught you off guard when I first said that.
It did, because it's in my head so much. And you've watched my videos, and this is really much more common in TV lately, Beard, where it's much more common in TV shows, where I'm expected to sit through 6, 8, 12 episodes of a TV show, and I have no one to root for. They're unlikable people, unlikable characters. This is Marvel Disney to a T. They ruin heroes, and I'm supposed to be rooting for villains and these awful humans. I see supposed to be protagonists or heroes who behave more like villains. It really hit me, because there's so many times I've thought to myself, who am I supposed to be rooting for in this show again, by the way? You know what I mean? Or it's like the incompetent hero has now overtaken a hero's journey. But so much of there's no one to root for is in my brain over the last 5 years, and has derailed my take from a lot of people who've liked different things. Like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for in this show or this movie. And if I'm not rooting for anyone, why am I supposed to come back? And when I dovetail that with the fact that they're just wasting my time. The most recent examples, if people are watching this, Reacher season 3, Daredevil Born Again. I don't need to sit through 8. This is insane. There's like a 2-hour story in there. Like, this, you guys are just taking up 6 to 8 hours of my life. And who am I rooting for? Why am I rooting for them? Where are they at the beginning of the story, the end of the story? It's like just these really fundamental things. At the end of Departed, I did come away understanding that he's really telling the tale of this type of life and the crime and all of that. And I get it. And I do get that the pig that gets in to, you get in with the pig, you're going to come out dirty kind of philosophy with the cops is fine. That's a great story to tell. The problem is they didn't leave any good cops on the outside of the stall that made me happy at the end of the movie. And the ones or twos that are left, I either don't care at all or are pretty crass to the point that I don't care enough. And I think that's what hinders this movie. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was how it all sparked. He made a random comment about there's no one to root for. I'm like, oh, that's a very good point. I've not watched that movie long enough to care. So now I know. So you were right about that for sure. So, well, folks, if you already haven't hit a comment, I'm sure we might have stirred up something in your brain. Feel free to leave it and let me know. And feel free to check back every Friday for a little Friday Popscast and hanging out, talking different nerd stuff. I don't know. Hopefully we're having a good time. You guys are having a good time. And watch some good stuff. There's tons of good stuff to watch. Don't get bogged down by all this stuff. And make sure you check out Beard's channel, some of the different things that he's doing. He's over on other people's channels all the time as well. Beard, is there anything particular that you're on regularly that we can plug?
Tuesdays, you can usually find me on Jacob Ironside's channel on YouTube, doing some movie reviews. We all alternate old like John Wayne movies and things like that with a couple episodes of X-Files, and then another old movie, and then a couple episodes of Star Trek right now. So check that out. That's a lot of fun. And then Thursdays, people can find me with Roman of the Empire for whatever the heck movie he wants to review that week. And then sometimes some pop culture, commentary as far as what's going on in the industry today. As far as specifically my channel, I'm getting a little bit more settled into a little bit of a new space here, and I'm looking to start doing a little bit of streaming here or there. I've kind of missed doing that, so I'm looking forward to getting back to it. No promises on when, but anybody who's been subscribed over there, thank you for sticking with it.
Well, we enjoy having it when it comes. And Jacob and Roman are both very friends of the channel and friends to me personally. And we'll put links there for both of them as well. Make sure you check out Beard and what he's been doing. Make sure, if you like what you've enjoyed here, just consider hitting one of those playlists and watch a few more shows. Obviously, the one where we talked about the Prestige, I thought was a great conversation and kind of the tip of the iceberg for that film, because that film is kind of an elite film compared to many, many others that we could talk about. And I've been thinking about the biggest Oscar snubs of all time. And I think I have to put Prestige on that list because I think we talked about it. I don't think it had any representation at all. And that film has got a legacy that's way better than the films that were winning awards in the year that it came out. Yeah. So, yeah, some good stuff to talk about. Good chatter. That's what we try to do here on the Old Pops channel, hanging out with the Old Pops verse for sure. So, but folks, you guys be blessed. Talk hard. Hang in there. Have some good stuff in your life. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks to you, to Beard. And until next time, folks, I am Pops.
Our double feature continues with martial arts action at its best. A group of students have mastered the art of Kung Fu and put their awesome power to evil use. The 5 Deadly Venoms. Next, here on Channel 5.
Coming fall 1998. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. It's Scooby-Doo's first feature-length movie. Available only on video from Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
Hey, Rodney, I got you now. Oh, this is really no respect. I can't win in my own game. Yes, you can. Did you hear something? Only you can hear me, Rodney. Then help me out. Every move I make, they stop me. I think I'm winning, I end up a loser. Play the 7. 7?
Hey, let's get out of here. This guy's nuts. He's talking to the box.
Oh, they walked out of me. Who cares? And I'll play with you. Look at this. I worked out of myself.
Rodney Dangerfield's No Respect, the zany new numbers game from Milton Bradley.
For true